In 2012, a 13-year-old boy named Hamza Ali al-Khatib became one of the youngest symbols of the resistance after his brutal death in the detention for participating in the protest. His story reflects a poignant truth articulated by Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in the situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of oppressor. The Syrian Civil War began with the cries of justice and democracy, but spiraled into a labyrinth of sufferings, foreign interventions, and proxy battles, shaping one of the darkest chapters of the modern history. The civil war in Syria began as a localized uprising and later evolved into one of the most complex and devastating conflicts of 21st century. Recently, more than 50 years of rule in Syria came to an end on December 8, 2024, when rebel forces by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham overthrew the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. This regime change, along with the Israel-Hamas conflict, further aggravates the regional instability by creating a power vacuum due to Syria's unclear leadership, which we will discuss. Hello everyone, I am Vishal Salsekar, Faculty of International Relations at VisionIAS, and I am going to discuss the Syrian Civil War topic in detail. In this video, we are going to discuss the details about origin of Syrian Civil War, the nature of conflict including the actors involved, its implications on Syria and the world, and lastly, we will also discuss the role of India in this conflict and a way ahead in this regard. Talking about the Syrian Civil War, it began in 2011 amid the larger wave of the Arab Spring, which swept across Middle East and North Africa. Inspired by the successful revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt, peaceful protests against the regime of President Bashar al-Assad erupted in the cities across Syria. The protesters demanded the democratic reforms, freedom from the oppression, and economic opportunity. However, what started as a call for change quickly descended into violence. The regime responded with brutal crackdowns, arresting critics, and employing deadly forces against the civilians. This reaction sparked an armed rebellion, leading to a full-scale civil war, which we will see today. Now, when we are talking about the roots of Syrian Civil War, these can be traced back to the decades of authoritarian rule. When Hafiz al-Assad, who is the father of Bashar al-Assad, took power in 1971, he consolidated the control through the combination of socialistic policies and suppression of dissent. His son, Bashar al-Assad, inherited the presidency in 2000, initially promising certain reforms. However, his regime favored a small elite and exacerbated inequality, especially during the prolonged drought of 2006 to 2010, which forced the mass rural migration and increased unemployment. Now, studies by United Nations indicates that the drought displaced 1.5 million of Syrian people, further straining the urban resources. The Arab Spring in 2011 was breaking point. The peaceful protests demanding the political freedoms and democratic reforms were met with the violent crackdowns, sparking a violent and widespread uprising. Over a period of time, the conflict fragmented into multifaceted war involving the rebel factions, extremist groups like ISIS, and foreign interventions. Now, while analyzing the nature of Syrian civil war, we have to understand that it is not a simple binary conflict, but a multifaceted war involving numerous internal and external actors. On one side, the Syrian government forces led by Bashar al-Assad has received the significant support from the countries like Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia, who view Assad as a crucial to their regional strategies and military foothold. Russia's intervention, particularly its airstrike from 2015 onwards, played a decisive role in preventing the immediate collapse of Assad regime. On the other hand, the opposition groups, including Free Syrian Army and Islamist factions like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham (HTS), had been actively worked to overthrow Assad. Additionally, Kurdish forces such as the Syrian Democratic Forces (SDF) have fought for the autonomy in the northern Syria, often clashing with the Turkish forces concerned about the Kurdish influence in the region near the borders. Although largely defeated territorially, the remnants of Islamic states also continue to pose threats, adding to the layer of complexity to the conflict. The Syrian civil war that we are discussing has far-reaching implications that extends well beyond its borders. The power vacuum created by Assad's recent fall has intensified the rivalries among the regional powers. Iran aims to maintain its influence through the alliance with Hezbollah, while Turkey opposes the Kurdish autonomy near its borders. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, keen to limit Iranian and Turkish power, are expected to assert more influence in the Syrian political affairs. Another important regional player is Israel. With the fall of Assad, Israel is poised to take more assertive stance against the Iran-affiliated groups like Hezbollah operating in Syria. Russia too faces significant challenges as it seeks to preserve its strategic interest in Syria, particularly its naval bases in Tartus and Latakia. These bases are critical for projecting its power into Mediterranean, and losing them would weaken the Russia's influence in the region. Meanwhile, the US and European countries are also focused on preventing any kind of resurgence of the terrorist networks while countering both Iranian and Russian influence in the region. According to a 2024 report by the Carnegie Endowment International Peace, Syria's strategic location as a crossroads for the pipelines and shipping lanes underscore its importance in the global energy and the trade dynamics. The war has left Syria in the ruins, resulting over 5 lakh deaths and displacing more than 13 million people, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for the Refugees. The humanitarian crisis is one of the worst in the modern history, with the use of chemical weapons attacks, blockades, and ongoing violence compounding to the suffering of the civilians. Establishing a unified governance structure remains an enormous challenge due to the fractured political landscape, and also the involvement of the competing factions creates further issues. Proxy wars involving the regional and the international powers further complicate the peace efforts, with each actor pursuing their own agenda. Now coming to the India's role, though India is not directly involved in the Syrian conflict but has the potential to play a very constructive role for fostering the stability. The diplomatic mediation could be a key avenue as India has consistently advocated for a Syrian-led political solution. Leveraging its non-aligned stance and establish relation both with Syria and other Middle Eastern nations, India could act as a neutral facilitator in the peace talks. Additionally, India's track record of humanitarian aid, exemplified by Operation Dost in 2023, positions it well to support Syrian civilians affected by the conflict and natural disasters. This operation delivered over 230 tons of relief material to earthquake-affected regions, showcasing India's commitment to humanitarian cause. Strategic partnership in the areas such as energy and counter-terrorism could also benefit India while contributing to the reconstruction of Syria. Lastly, Syria stands as the pivotal juncture. While the fall of Assad's regime marks an end to one chapter in the civil war, it also opens the new phase of uncertainty. The international community must prioritize humanitarian relief, political reconciliation, and cooperative diplomacy to ensure stability. India's balanced foreign policy and historical ties with Syria enables it to contribute positively to these efforts. As the dust settles, Syria's resilience and the global commitment to peace will determine whether the country can rise again as a symbol of unity and strength. The Syrian Civil War is not just a regional conflict, but its case study with significant implications for international relations, making it highly relevant for the UPSC Civil Services examination. From the perspective of GS2, it highlights the critical issues such as the role of diplomacy, impact of proxy wars, regional geopolitics, and the international community's response to the humanitarian crisis. In GS Paper 4, it serves as a stark reminder of the ethical dilemma in the global governance, the responsibility to protect, and the role of values like justice and human rights in policy making. Furthermore, it also offers rich material for crafting balanced argument in essay paper, particularly for the themes like global conflicts, humanitarian crisis, or morality of power in the international politics. For more such insightful discussions that bridge the global events with the exam-focused learning, stay tuned to this series. Together, let's deepen our understanding and build the perspective that matters. Thank you, everyone.